Why did Adventure Time keep giving Finn his arm back?
You raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly, sir. Bravo!
Finn losing his right arm was a massive plot point that has been foreshadowed countless times since the first couple of seasons on the show.
I bet your daddy is just about finished chopping wool. You guys want to bring him his lunch?
There was that one time when Finn became an older and more jaded version of himself when he was stuck in Pillow World.
Promise me you'll remember us when you're back in your real life.
We don't do that here.
Those oddly out-of-place vision scenes in Mortal Folly and Dungeon Train.
This is a future crystal! Look! That's you, dude! You're old!
And then there's the fact that not only was Finn losing his right arm hinted at being some kind of unavoidable cosmic event in the existence of other universes like Farmworld, but one of Finn's past lives also lost their right arm in U when they were exactly around his age.
This is all very nice, but it doesn't solve the mystery.
Despite all of this really awesome build-up towards the inevitable loss of our boy's favorite limb, the writers of the show would sadly make the worst mistake imaginable before they'd actually give us a taste of a payoff of a relentless foreshadowing. One of my absolute biggest pet peeves in fictional stories is when the writer openly chooses to be as non-committal as possible, and while Adventure Time has unfortunately become one of the worst offenders of this practice as we're about to fully explore, the show definitely wasn't the only offender of this practice. Finn loses his arm after his infamous family reunion at the Citadel, but he'd of course regain his lost limb less than 4 episodes later in one of the most controversial episodes on the show.
Let love be your guide.
What?
At the time, Breezy basically split the entire Adventure Time fandom in half, with there being fans who praised the episode for its incredibly daring and mature take on the struggles of finding love during the horrible modern dating landscape.
I didn't wait infinity for a dip in the kiddie pool. We're taking this to the deep end.
You what?
And then there were fans who called the episode out for seemingly wasting years of painstakingly crafted character development and setup by resolving one of their most anticipated arcs, with Finn essentially ejaculating his arm back on.
Calm down, son. It's just a drawing.
I'm sure that you can guess which side I was on when this episode first aired, but I've honestly changed my mind on where I stand in this controversy as I've gotten older. It's also clear with the power of hindsight that the writers were only laying down the groundwork for something bigger to go down, being the second time that Finn would actually lose his arm and the birth of Adventure Time's most tragic character, Finn. Believe it or not, while Preboot and Reboot were both really engaged in plot-heavy episodes, they'd only serve to expose even more of the show's creative issues, further dividing the fandom.
Oh my. Just 1 second.
Creative issues which includes one of the most awkward fight scenes that you'll probably see this week during one of the show's most important moments.
Susan, this is for your own well-being. How did this happen?
The way that these episodes chose to handle the long-awaited return of our boy Rattleballs, who was without a doubt Finn's most skilled teacher. Emphasis on the word was there.
God damn, girl.
And the slightly annoying fact that these 2 episodes were supposed to be set directly after each other but have noticeable inconsistencies, like Jake suddenly having Princess Bubblegum's pendant on when he clearly didn't moments earlier.
Okay, hang tight, Jake. I've got elite insulated banana guards en route.
This is the worst.
Finn did lose his arm again though, which gave fans like myself a sense of hope that the writers of Adventure Time were finally about to follow through on all of their setup, and they actually kind of did. Finn never regains his right arm after the events of Reboot and instead has Princess Bubblegum build him a brand new mechanical arm, which was incredibly cool. Yeah, it turns out that while the show was definitely avoiding commitment during important plot points like the status of Finn's arm or Jake's sudden change at the end of Elements and then complete reversion only 1 episode later, it was doing all of this entirely on purpose, or at least that's what the fans who defend the progression of these 2 plot points say. The only reason that fans keep pushing the idea that Adventure Time was always about the nature of change is because of the Sticks miniseries. Sticks was on all accounts a mixed bag. Some fans loved it, some fans thought that it didn't exactly live up to its full potential considering the fact that Marceline, the main focus of the miniseries, didn't really seem to grow after its events, but as for me, I actually really enjoyed Sticks for the most part. Although it probably didn't hurt that Marceline was always one of my favorite characters on the show.
Better late than never, I guess.
The main theme of the Sticks miniseries was the true nature of change, more specifically being the philosophy that even when our favorite items and relationships seems to fade or disappear over time, their original impact and memory will always live on. Everything stays. There are multiple examples of this philosophy playing out during the Sticks miniseries, with of course Marceline becoming a full-on vampire again near the very end of the special being the prime example. Simon choosing to be in Marceline's life as the Ice King even after he lost his humanity and his sanity is another brilliant example of his philosophy taking form on the show. I'm not going to lie, this was Adventure Time at its best. While the show has shared its take on a ton of philosophies and avoided sharing its take on a couple of others, very few concepts that were explored on the show hit as close to home as this one. This was Adventure Time not only teaching us how to deal with our biggest losses, but how to overcome them and find meaning in the various kinds of different changes that they'd inevitably bring to our lives. It's no wonder that fans held onto this philosophy in particular so tightly and tried to apply it to every other story arc on the show, but here's the truth. I don't think that we should try to apply it to every other story arc on the show, especially the botched ones. Cartoons having themes, story arcs, and plot twists planned from the very beginning isn't anything new, but I just don't personally think that Adventure Time had this one figured out since its inception. Marceline's relationship with the Ice King alone was only considered by Rebecca Sugar and Pendleton Ward during the middle of season 4, after the team realized that the two of them hadn't ever had an interaction on screen up until that point in the show. Here's the facts. Finn loses his arm for the first time a full season before the Sticks miniseries would even get announced, but at the same time, the Sticks miniseries was released a full season before we'd see the resolution of Finn and Finn's intertwined character arcs. While it's definitely possible that the writers always intended for the true nature of change to have been the theme of the show before the Sticks miniseries was even in conception, I honestly just believe that the reason why Finn kept regaining his arm and Jake was barely allowed to stay in his true form for more than a single episode at a time was because of the fact that the writers simply didn't want to drastically change the status quo. It's also entirely possible that Cartoon Network themselves was the obstacle that stood in the way of the creative team's original vision for the show. A common theory that was actually Alex Hirsch's reality while he was working on Gravity Falls. It's sadly been extensively documented that Alex Hirsch would constantly argue with Disney over creative control of Gravity Falls. There were tons of cancelled plot points that will never see the light of day thanks to Disney's awful intervention. Huge cancelled plot points. I can't say for sure whether Pendleton Ward was in the exact same situation with Cartoon Network as Alex Hirsch was in with Disney, but I can say with 100% certainty that this video is over now.